Hi everyone. Oh my god, I just realized this is my 4th video in a row. Remember I cursed myself and said I could never do 4 in a row, but 4 in a row. I'm in the car park of the gym. It's pissing rain. I've got my braces in if I've got a bit of a lisp. I do apologize. Last week apparently though, so I probably will get the bar back in, but anyway, that's a different story. I'm going to the gym. I've been getting back swimming. So I swam for like competitively really long time when I was a kid, and I have kind of got back into it. It's one reason why I joined Westwood, because they have like a 50-meter pool, and it's just like very zen to me. I think getting back swimming for some reason, for something that I used to do like 7 times a week, 2 hours a day, and like probably dread it at the time. Like now I'm finding it really great because it's such a good form of exercise and I just really enjoy it. I think I'm going to try to do a little workout, like a small little dumbbell workout in Westwood in the women's, they have a women's gym in the changing rooms. It's mad. So if that's not too packed, I'll try to get a little workout in there and then do a swim, but if not, I'll just swim. I've been trying so on my big swims, because I've been trying once a week to do like a big swim session. I do like about 3 kilometers, 3 to 3. The last time I think I got 3.5. But 3 is, that's including like warm up and cool down. So today actually, you're allowed not wear masks anywhere. And it feels so weird. I actually haven't gone anywhere yet, but I'm like, should I have my mask? I've been so conditioned by society, man. But yeah, no masks anymore. Although I did get a text from the place that does my my laser, and they're still asking people to wear masks. So my prediction, and it's been my prediction the whole time, I still think loads of places are going to be like, please still wear your mask, which is like, ugh, whatever. But yeah, so that's where we're at. I'm gonna head in. I've got my Glossier bag packed. You would have seen it in last week's vlog as well. Great old bag, have to say. It's already filthy, which is great. But yeah, we're gonna head in, do a little sesh, and then I'll bring you food shopping with me. I'll show you some stuff I get. I love watching what people get in the supermarket. So we will do that. We'll spend the day together, a rainy day. I've actually got a really busy week this week. I'm recording with 2 Americans. I feel like Irish people always have a real what would the word be? Like respect for anyone. Like if someone has an American accent, we're like, oh. But anyway, that's the plan for this week. Let's see what I get filmed. Who knows? I feel like I'm on supermarket speed because I have like 5 more minutes to finish the shop. Also feels mad being in a shop with no mask, I have to say. By the way, like these goggle marks, are you fucking serious? That's like the reality of swimming. I always remember that, like my hair smelling of chlorine, having goggle marks on my fucking face all the time. My hair is a bit random at the moment because I put a bit of a bun in it, because if I don't put if I just blow dry it, it just goes dead straight. So the bun kind of gives it a bit of a wave. I'm just waiting here for Evan. There's nothing to do. I've literally no idea what I bought in the shops. I grabbed just whatever the fuck I could see. So it'll be a surprise tonight. Tonight I think Ed's going to train again with his friend. He always trains at night time with his mate, and I'm excited because I get to watch the Euphoria finale. I haven't actually spoken about Euphoria on my channel at all, I don't think, and I've been watching every single episode. I talked about it a good bit with people on the Discord, but maybe I'll give it a little wrap up, final thoughts in the vlog this week. So I'll let you know when I'm going to talk about it, because there'll obviously be spoilers. But loving it so far. What a season! Like last season, I liked it, but I wasn't like obsessed. This season, I'm like, fuck. Well done. Anyway. Where the fuck is Evan? Like, I feel like I should be calling him now, being like, where are you? Morning, guys. I'm on my way. Well, I'm about to go. Oh, so bright. I'm about to go and get my nails done. I need to put you down somewhere. I'm about to go get my nails done. I think I'm just gonna get the same. I'm really like into just the French, like just a French kind of semi-square, but they need to be way shorter because they're way too long and it's actually stressing me out. And they're grown out to fuck, so you know what I mean. So I'm gonna go get them done. I'm working later on tonight. Oh, yesterday I didn't get to watch Euphoria. I'm so fuming. Evan came home and he was like, oh, we couldn't go to the gym. I was like, what? So we ended up watching that thing about like the Boeing thing with the planes dropping out of the sky. Anyway, I'm gonna watch Euphoria hopefully tonight, and I'll be able to talk about it later on the pod. Let me show you actually this blazer, my outfit. I'm trying to do outfits, guys. So this t-shirt is a vintage Versace t-shirt, and it was gifted to me by the Wild Era. I'll link them below. They're like an Irish, I don't know if they actually do vintage anymore. I know she makes like her own stuff now, but they're really cute, sustainable kind of brand. This blazer is Reverie. You know, guys know I have bought from them loads of times. They actually gifted me this blazer around Christmas, and it's so nice. It's kind of like, has this weird kind of double button kind of situation, but the fit of it is just perfect on me. And these are my jeans. I always get asked about these jeans. They are called the Dear Dreams. Dear Dreams, no, Dear Jeans. I always call them Dream, and they're from And Other Stories. I actually ordered them recently in like a light blue, and they were on sale for like 30 quid, like 50% off. I couldn't believe it, but that kind of makes me think that they're discontinuing them. But yeah, just search Dear Jeans. I'm not a links person, guys. I'm not really like a fashion blogger links thing. You can just Google and you'll find them. Anyway, gotta go get my nails done. And yes, I am the type of bitch to brag about wearing outfits while still proudly wearing Ugg boots. Basement. These coming back in style has been the death of me. Fucking yeah, Uggs. Like, I was an Uggs fanatic back in the day. Like, you've no idea. I wore them every day to school. Rain or shine, and I hadn't had a pair in so long. Actually, my pair was in my mom's house, and then recently got these little small ones, the chocolate brown ones, and they're so fucking comfortable, but I fucking cannot take them off. Like, truly cannot ever take them off. They will live on my feet forever. Got my nails done. Does it pick up on this camera? Like, I literally got the oh, there's all. Yeah, I think you can see it there. I just got a tiny bit of glitter, just for, I don't know, to make me feel like didn't get the exact same thing. Anyway, I'm gonna have some lunch. I actually bought a really cute blazer in the charity shop. I'll show you that as well. I'm gonna make a chicken Caesar salad. I've been obsessed with chicken Caesar, so basic bitch of mob, but love it. I just buy the rotisserie chickens because they're so much easier. And then I make my own Caesar dressing. That's the key, and it's so fucking simple. It's literally just mayonnaise, anchovies, parmesan, white wine vinegar, and salt and pepper, I think. That's it. And then bit of lettuce. Delish. I got this in Vincent's. I just don't have a blazer this colour. It's kind of like a houndstooth kind of vibe. I think that's just really flattering. Like, it's a nice colouring on me. I think it just kind of suits. Like, it's just like nice as well not to have black, because I always get black. Show you in the mirror. It's kind of coming up a little bit darker, but it's like, yeah, there you go. You can see the colours. It's really cute though. Very 90s. Yeah, so my mission to wear more outfits is well underway. Even if I do it like 3 days a week, honestly, I think I'll feel better about myself. But yeah, okay, so now I'm gonna make my Caesar salad.
Be confused because in the grand scheme of controversial things that have happened on this show, Friday seemed pretty vanilla.
I'm not even supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be on paternity leave.
All right.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but I do think there's just.
Do we have anything quick we can do before?
Yeah,
because culture war bullshit has consumed the GOP to like such a degree in which to understand the world anymore. It's
right.
Like,
Go ever on Twitter, but okay, let me read it. You millennial leftists who never lived one day.
Here's my salad.
Thank you.
Here, let me take a roll. Is your name really Johnny Cash?
Yeah, it is.
Hey guys. Oh my god, so I had such a weird experience there. I reached out to someone for them to come on my podcast. Or I thought it was to come on my podcast. I said collab, but now I think I'm going on their podcast, or the podcast we're recording is going on their platform, which is fine. But I just got confused for a second. But anyway, that's beyond my point. I actually have something I want to talk about. It's kind of been spurred on by something I listened to the other day, and then something I just watched on H3. You might have heard that I was listening to H3 recently. I listened to Emma Chamberlain's latest podcast, and Emma Chamberlain is someone who I only became aware of about 2 months, I'd say, into making YouTube videos. I was never really I always kind of thought that I'd be too old to listen to Emma Chamberlain, or to watch her, should I say. And I think that would be true from her older content. Like, I tried to watch a few of those videos and they weren't really for me, but like her newer vlogs I thought were really great, and she seems funny, and I liked her on Call Her Daddy as well. And obviously, if you don't know who she is, she's like probably, I'd say, the biggest YouTuber, like female vlogger anyway, and she's very like influential, you know. I really like her style of videos. Her style of videos made me feel like more comfortable with kind of not putting loads of pressure on myself for like loads to be happening in my videos, which is why I thought they were quite cool, because like she doesn't really do much either. Me and Emma are so alike. Not at all, but I think that's interesting, you know. But I want to talk about her latest podcast, because she released a podcast basically discussing how she hasn't released a video in a couple of months, I guess, because I found her almost when she was going on a break. Like, I'm not one of those people who's so invested in her that I've noticed her not having videos, because I kind of found her videos, as I said, maybe in like November last year, and I just kind of watched like a bunch of them and then was like, oh, she's cool, she's cooler than I thought. But obviously a lot of her fan base would have that kind of parasocial relationship with her, where they're like missing her videos and like probably like putting a lot of pressure on her for videos. And she released this new podcast. I don't listen to her podcast, it's not really for me, but like she's good at it, you know, and I could imagine it would fill a hole if you were like a fan of hers. She's talking about her basically taking kind of an indefinite break from YouTube, and the reasons that she listed, kind of, she was talking about burnout and content burnout, and how investing herself so much, being on this hamster wheel of creating content. And also I feel, and this could have been me projecting my own past with burnout onto her, but I feel she also was getting burnt out by having such a heavy expectation of a certain kind of content from her. And I think she also feels a huge amount of pressure from her audience, who are probably like, Queen, when is the next video, and all that kind of stuff. And I also feel like she kind of spoke, she was like, I don't think there's a healthy way to be a YouTuber. So she's like, I'm loving my podcast, I'm loving my coffee company. Now, where I related to this, and I realize this is a very niche thing, but I think everyone can relate on some level, because I think you either create content or you consume content, or both. I do both. So I think everyone has a part to play in it. She was talking about like burnout and creative burnout, and being on a hamster wheel of like creating these videos over and over, but not liking the videos and not being proud of the content she was creating, but feeling like she had to kind of fill this void for her audience. And I really think that, you know, despite whatever else happened with my last podcast, like on a personal note, like that aside, right, we're just talking like in general about that last podcast about It Gals. I feel like I was having major creative burnout without even really acknowledging it. There was a period of time on those podcasts where people were like, our audience, or a fraction of our audience really, compared to the numbers of people that were listening to us, but there was, you know, it's an important fraction, because it was people who were very like probably on the highest level of that parasocial relationship. And I actually don't mean to, like, whenever I talk about those parasocial relationships, I'm not using that in a way of like talking down to people who, because I think we all engage with people parasocially no matter what. Once you have Instagram and you're watching people online, you are engaging with the parasocial relationship, okay? So everyone does it. It's not like a me and you kind of thing. But from people who were quite on the higher spectrum of that parasocial relationship, as in like possibly, and I'll just speak for myself, possibly like we're more invested than the average listener, who might listen a bit more like, oh look, there's a new episode, I'll listen to that, not really think about much else. It's hard not to take on board their criticisms or their frustrations or their feedback, even if it's unwarranted, to be honest. And there was a kind of conversation that I was made aware of, that like people were feeling that, and again, I'm only going to speak for myself, that like I wasn't being, but it was of the podcast as a whole, that it wasn't as personal as it once was, and it wasn't as divulgent as it once was, and that, you know, stories weren't as like juicy as they once were, and that caused such major resentment within me towards the podcast in general, towards making the content, and possibly towards some of the audience. Like, I'll just be completely honest, and it's not like a personal one-on-one thing, it was just like a frustration thing. It's like, you know, when you're trying your best to appease people, it can be really hard when you feel like you're kind of up against, you know, a current. You're like swimming against the current. And it is funny because it's like, I was watching just that episode of H3 there, and he was talking about how like he's getting not criticism, or I guess criticism at the moment from his audience, saying like, oh, the podcast isn't as consistent as we want it, and the content isn't as blah, and it's like list vibes, like here's a list of how bad all your content is. And he just had like a newborn, and like I was going through, again, just speaking for myself, I was going through my own stuff on top of at that time, like when that criticism seemed to be at its height. And don't get me wrong, I think that a lot of the criticism that we were getting at that time was true. Like, I'm not arguing against it. And I think a lot of the reasoning why we weren't connecting with our audience at that time is because we weren't connecting with each other. And I think that was like the crux of it all, really. Like, so I'm not like gaslighting people by saying like you guys were being crazy, like not at all. But I think I couldn't see it at the time, or I didn't want to. Anyway, however, what I will say is there's a lot of conversation online about like the platform and the responsibility of influencers. And I think influencers, or anyone who creates content online, does have a responsibility, and you can only do your best. And you know, you don't have the responsibility of the weight of the world on your shoulders, but you can only do your best. And I think once you're trying to do your best, and once you're trying to come from a good place, like, good, you're doing well. But I think that there's a lack of conversation around like the responsibility of the audience, because even though it's parasocial, it's also a bit of a symbiotic relationship. Like, you know, criticism is 100% warranted. I think influencers, because anyone who creates content like myself, we're so close to our content, it's really hard to not take any feedback like that as so fucking personal, because all of our content is just personal. Like, even my podcast, which isn't about me anymore, is still personal. But you do have to be able to have that, and it comes with practice and years in the industry, really. And I'm not even that long in the industry compared to some people. Of having this like bit of distance between yourself and the content, and being able to see it objectively rather than so personally. But I think that like there also has to be a bit more of a conversation around like the responsibility of the audience, because I'm seeing, and it's just an observation of mine, like I am definitely seeing more and more content creators and people who are the good ones, like the Emma Chamberlains, like H3, like the people who are like, I don't like to use the word unproblematic, because I think everyone's problematic in their own regard, but people who are just making like nice content for fun, that's really like, you know, and people who have like cultivated a lovely little kind of community online. Like, they're the people who are really being like, who are suffering from like extreme burnout, from having such high expectations put on themselves all the time to create consistent content. And to have not only the content be super consistent, but the content to be exactly what the audience wants at that given time. Emma Chamberlain said something else in that video, which I was like, fucking hell, that is so true. And I resonated with it a lot. Another reason why me and Emma Chamberlain are so like, again, I understand how ridiculous it is for me to be making this comparison, but just stick with me. She spoke about how, what was it again? She spoke about how sometimes being in this industry is like, you are being like, you're like working like predictive text messaging. Like, you are predicting, you're trying to predict what your audience wants before they know they want it. Like, I'm putting out a podcast, I'm putting out a video, Emma Chamberlain's doing the same, me and her on the same vibe. But we're doing this and hoping that what we've done that week in the past pleases you guys in the present. And sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does. That's just the nature of it. But like, it's very difficult. And then sometimes when you've put like your fucking like back into a piece of content, you get like people being like, oh, I wish it was more like this. And then sometimes you do it like this and they still don't like it. And I think that's what's causing like your favorite influencers to kind of just be like, fuck this, like, and retreating completely. To go back on the conversation on my old pod, like people were saying like, you know, oh, the girls aren't as personal as they used to be, or the like stories aren't as juicy. And for myself, like I felt kind of up against a bit of a rock and a hard place, because I was like, well, like my life just isn't, well, first of all, like the first like 2 years maybe of the podcast was like, maybe the stories were, oh, sorry, I just shook my camera. You're balancing on a vase. Maybe the stories were like more personal, but like I can't make up stories, you know? It's like I was at a very different part of my life back then. I was younger. I was still living at home. Like it was just like a different like part of my life. Like I was like 26-ish, I think, 26 or 27 when we started that podcast. And when it ended, I was 31. So like they were just very different periods of life, and anyone who's gone through that like 27 to 31 phase, like, you know, your life changes a lot. Not everyone's does the same pace, but mine did quite a lot. And then I felt like really frustrated, because I'm like, people would say like, oh, like the level of like personal stories weren't there. And then I went on to literally like anytime, I felt like anytime something really personal happened to me, I fucking shared it. Like I was happy to share. I told my entire engagement story on the podcast, which like personally, like I prefer not to be out there on that platform now. Like, you know, it's something that's so personal to me, but at the time when I was in it, of course, I wanted to share it with all the listeners. I shared so much about the breakdown of my last relationship, navigating that from being in a long-term relationship. I shared so much about that relationship. I actually felt like as the years went on, I shared more, just because my life, like I ended a long-term relationship, started dating, was single, got with Evan, you know, and I shared the entirety of that relationship. And my reasoning for like saying this isn't to be defensive. It's actually just to be like, I think that like there has to be a little bit more onus sometimes on the audience, and like for the audience to do a little bit more self-reflection at times, because as toxic as my industry can be, I think that it's a bit of a two-way toxicity sometimes, and people can be very like, I saw something else, I think it was your one who does Call Her Daddy. I'm not like a avid Call Her Daddy listener, but I follow her on Instagram and I listen from time to time. I like her guests, I like her episodes with guests. And she put up something like, I can't remember what it was, but like basically like saying like something terrible happened to her, put like blah 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 blah, like I don't know, she had something really bad happen to her, and like someone messaged her being like, where's the podcast? It's like that kind of shit. Like that's the toxic side, and that is what creates burnout, because for even if you get one comment like that as a content creator, I find you get this, like, you feel so seen. Like if I miss a vlog and someone messaged me being like, is there a vlog today? And I'm kind of like, okay, like if there's a vlog, there's a vlog. If there's not. And then you feel like really hard on yourself, because you're like, oh, I shouldn't be so fucking, what would the word be? Like, I shouldn't be so like bitter towards someone who just likes my content. And then you feel guilty because you're like, this is my job. As far as most jobs go, it's a pretty cushy one. However, that's also something that I'm like, is it cushy? Because like it's cushy in like different ways. Like the hours are like, I mean, you can work as many hours as you want as this job, which kind of tends to mean you work all the time, a lot of the time. But there is also this thing of like, you're giving like a part of yourself up for digestion. And with that comes parasocial relationships and being on the receiving end of parasocial relationships, which is a very unique experience. And although you are also probably engaging in your own parasocial relationships, like I would, by just listening to that episode of Emma Chamberlain's podcast, like that's literally me being parasocial, because I'm like presuming I know exactly what she feels just because I listen to her podcast. And like, it's like I know her, I don't know her, and I never will know her. I don't know. It's just, and again, it's not like a thing of like me like telling off any of my audience. It's just I thought you guys would understand that and maybe like have some thoughts as well, because it is something that it interests me both as a consumer and as someone who's been on the receiving end of it. And it kind of made me cop on listening to her podcast about like how I was feeling maybe around this time last year, and how I felt like I felt like I was beginning to resent my own content and not like it, because they were like, I felt at the time there were expectations which were almost impossible to achieve at that given time. And I felt like I was kind of, running on a treadmill to nowhere. And when that also is tied into your primary income, let me tell you, that's really fucking stressful. And not just your primary income, like your friendships and your relationships, and it's fucking weird. It really is strange. But like I do think the reason why so many influencers out there, because another kind of conversation I see going on is like, someone say the trajectory of an influencer's life is like they start off and they get a bit of a following, and that following are like a bit of a cult following, and that's great, and they're really invested in you, and then they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and maybe making more and more content, and their content is, say they got viral or whatever, they got their following from going on rants, okay, and they're going on rants and raves, and they start to basically almost mimic their first rant constantly, because they're like, that's what my audience wants, and then you're on the hamster wheel. And then after a while, what happens is people start to I think people either start to subconsciously see that you're mimicking something that you once were, or they start to kind of resent, and not in a like jealousy way, they kind of maybe start to resent like this new version of you, or that maybe you're becoming a bit more successful, like visually, like maybe you've got a new apartment because like you're influencing or whatever is going so well, your rants and raves are making you loads of money on YouTube, and all of that kind of shit. So there's actually like sometimes from the audience there's a need for you to be stagnant, and there's a need for you to have nothing change. However, like with change in your life and with success should come newer and better content, but because so many content creators are stuck on that hamster wheel, that doesn't happen, and they're kind of being fake, so they're pretending they are something that they're not anymore. But if they show the real them, there's this fear of like being hated by your audience. So then your audience starts to kind of turn on you and resent you, and kind of be like, oh, I wish she did those rants again, and she used to just be so much more real. And I don't think I've ever been subject to this, but I've seen this conversation around other influencers so many times. There's this, oh, well, she used to be this, or she used to be that, or I preferred it when she was this, or this era, or that boyfriend, or that apartment, all that kind of stuff. And then what happens from those conversations and from that pressure being put on the content creator, I have seen it happen so many times. What happens then is the content creator or the influencer or whatever the fuck you want to say, the YouTuber, just completely cuts off a section of their life, and they'll stop the rants because they're like, okay, I can't make anyone happy with these rants anymore. I'm not doing the rants anymore. And that happened to a degree with my old content on It Gals, because one reason why personally I was pulling back from some of the personal stuff was because I was saying stuff maybe on, say, like our private podcast on Patreon, and it was never anything like, I would never say anything that like was a fucking secret, but I might like drop a name where I wouldn't have usually dropped a name. And what would happen is someone would go and like rat on me or something, and that was probably me being naive with this like trust in my audience. And then I was just like, right, fuck it, if I can't give, like, if you're gonna beg for like this juicy tea, if I give the juicy tea and you go and like rat on me or whatever, like, fuck off, I'm not giving you the tea anymore, that way. And then so what happens is it's this whole cut off, and then there's a resentment, and like I think that is part, and I don't know if it's because I'm older, Like Emma Chamberlain's literally what, like back to Emma Chamberlain, she's like what, 10 years younger than me. I think with time and observation too, because I've observed this happening so much too, I think I noticed that that's a key part in it. There's this turning of the audience. And it's interesting because I'm also like, can you ever get beyond that? Like, I don't know. I don't know if people can ever push beyond that and have the same relationship with their audience. That's what I mean. Like, I mean, I'm sure you can push beyond it, or like you become someone like Suzanne Jackson who like doesn't have to post about her life anymore because you've got this like huge brand and you just post about your brand and that's all good. But like, if you're just going to stay the content creator, like, it's funny. It's very interesting. It's an interesting one to observe and to be part of. More fun to observe than be part of. But like, let me know, like, as I said, like, that was not supposed to be like a lecture of how to act around like content creators. It's more just like, have you noticed yourself engaging toxically in a parasocial relationship? Or like, is it ever something you think of? Or do you ever notice other people do it in comments and you're like, what the fuck? Like, I'm not talking about people who just like comment on like videos. I just mean, have you seen stuff? Like, I see people commenting being like, Queen, where the fuck is the podcast? On like other people's like Call Her Daddy. And I'm like, leave her alone. Like, the podcast will be out when the podcast is out. You know what I mean? Anyway, that was just a complete random rant, but it was something that like I've been thinking of and sitting on since this weekend. And just watching that H3 clip where he's like talking about his audience turning on him, I'm like, fuck. The limit of this does not exist. Anyway, I have to fucking work. I don't think I'll get much else done today on the vlog, but I'll be back during the week.